Ethan slowly opened his eyes to the soft hum of medical equipment. The pale light of Valak Prime's medical ward filtered through the high windows, giving everything a faint greenish glow. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and something sweet that he couldn't identify. He tried to sit up, but a sharp ache ran through his shoulder and chest. "You're awake," said a calm, even voice. Ethan turned his head toward the source. Standing beside him was Leora, his assigned nurse. She was tall and elegant, her skin shimmering slightly in the light, like polished scales. And her eyes were a deep amber that seemed to look right into him. She smiled politely and extended a hand. "Good morning. How do you feel?" Ethan blinked. "Like I survived a crash." "Barely." He tried to adjust the blanket around his shoulders, wincing. Leora's hands moved quickly, almost floating in the air as she checked his vitals. "Your pulse is steady. Blood pressure is stable. You've made good progress overnight." She spoke in perfect common, the human language used across the planet. Her tone was calm, professional. Like she had done this 1,000 times before. Ethan let out a small sigh of relief. "Thanks, Leora. You've been amazing." She inclined her head slightly. "It is my duty." For the next few days, everything seemed normal. Ethan followed the strict rest schedule, took the prescribed medications, and participated in light rehabilitation exercises. Leora guided him carefully, always professional, always calm. She never smiled too much, never lingered unnecessarily. He was grateful, even a little impressed. Most alien nurses were polite but distant. Leora seemed perfect. Then something changed. It began subtly at first. Leora started appearing earlier than usual, sometimes standing at the foot of his bed even before he woke up. She checked his vitals more often than required, adjusted his blankets repeatedly, and her amber eyes followed him closely whenever he moved. Ethan chalked it up to diligence, but the day it became impossible to ignore, he realized something was very, very wrong. He had just finished his morning exercises when Leora appeared, not in her usual calm way, but almost excited. Her movements were quicker, her breathing heavier, and she kept glancing at him with a strange intensity. "Leora, are you feeling okay?" he asked, her head tilted slightly as if she were studying him carefully. Then she lowered her voice, almost a whisper. "I am. Compelled. I must. Choose." Ethan froze. "Choose? What do you mean?" Leora took a step closer. Her fingers hovered near his shoulder, but she did not touch him. "Human, you are my bond focus." Ethan blinked. "Bond? Focus? What are you talking about?" Before she could explain, another doctor, small and hurried, appeared from the hallway. He looked around nervously and motioned for Ethan to follow him. "Quickly. Come with me," he said. In a small consultation room, the doctor finally spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Ethan, she's entered mating season. It happens to her species periodically. It's natural, uncontrollable, and very strong. And she has chosen you." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Me wait? You're saying this is some kind of alien mating thing, and I'm what? The target?" The doctor nodded. "Yes, you must remain calm. Any sudden rejection could emotionally harm her. Her species bonds for life once she chooses. I know it sounds overwhelming, but it's real, and she cannot help her instincts." Ethan stumbled back against the wall. He couldn't even think. Instincts. She's going to what? Guard me? Attack me? I don't even know. The doctor tried to reassure him. "No, she will not harm you. But you need to understand she will be protective, possibly possessive, and her behavior may seem intense. You must be careful and calm." Ethan's mind spun. He had survived alien crashes, plasma storms, and robotic security drones. But this was something completely new. I don't even know how to respond to this." The doctor put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to respond right now. Just understand. Respect her instincts, and try to teach her human boundaries. That is all you can do." Ethan left the consultation room shaking. He had faced danger in every corner of the galaxy, but never like this. How could he handle an alien with instincts so strong he couldn't even understand them? When he returned to his room, he found Leora standing near the window, staring outside. She turned slowly as he entered, her expression unreadable. Then she walked toward him, her steps silent, her eyes fixed on him with that same intensity. "I waited," she said softly. "You are mine to protect." Ethan stepped back. Wait. I'm not. I mean, I appreciate your care, but I don't." Leora cut him off gently, but firmly. "I cannot stop it. I can only wait. Only you can guide me. Or refuse me." The words made Ethan's heart race. He had no idea what to do. Refuse her? That sounded dangerous. Guide her? He didn't even know how to do that. Over the next few hours, the ward became a strange battlefield of emotions. Every nurse, every doctor, and even the other patients noticed her unusual behavior. She hovered, watched, and stepped between him and anyone who came too close. She brought his food personally, adjusted his blankets repeatedly, and even repositioned his pillows for comfort without asking. Ethan tried to explain human personal space. He tried to explain friendship, respect, and boundaries. She listened, but her instincts pulled her back. Every time he left the room, she followed. Every time someone else approached him, she positioned herself between them. By my mad afternoon, Ethan realized something else he was beginning to feel. Grateful for her protection. Not in a romantic way, just safe. He had survived so much danger in space, and here was an alien who genuinely wanted to keep him safe. Even if he couldn't fully understand her behavior, the turning point came unexpectedly. The ward's alarm system blared, flashing red lights and a warning sound that echoed through the high ceilings. Security breach. Unauthorized creatures approaching from the east wing. Ethan barely had time to react before Leora moved. In a blur of speed, she positioned herself in front of him, her tail coiling around the foot of the bed as a protective barrier. Her claws scraped against the floor as she crouched, ready to strike. "What? What are you doing?" Ethan yelled. "Protecting you," Leora growled softly. "No harm will reach you while I stand." Austin watched, terrified and awestruck, as Leora leapt forward at the first intruder, a small, vicious alien creature no larger than a human dog, but much stronger and faster. She moved with precision, striking and dodging in ways Ethan had never seen before. He grabbed a nearby medical tray for defense, trying to help, but mostly he just watched as Leora's instincts took over. She fought without hesitation, every movement elegant and deadly. And even when injured by one of the creature's claws, she refused to leave his side. When the security team finally arrived and the creatures were subdued, Ethan was left panting and shaken. Leora had minor injuries but had protected him completely. She lowered herself to the floor, trembling slightly, and said softly, "I failed you. I could not fully prevent harm." Ethan shook his head. He knelt beside her. "No, you were incredible. You saved me. I don't know what I would have done without you." Her amber eyes glistened. She looked down, ashamed. "I do not understand. Humans fully. I only know instinct. I chose you. And yet, I do not know if you want this." Ethan placed a hand over hers. It was the first time he had touched her voluntarily. I don't know either. But I know this. You cared. You protected me. That matters more than anything right now." Leora's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. She nodded, just enough for Ethan to see. It was not a possessive gesture. It was tentative, respectful, and somehow hopeful. For the first time since the revelation of her mating season, Ethan felt a strange calm. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know what the rules of her species were, or what bond focus meant in the long term. But he did know one thing. Leora, in her own alien way, had chosen to protect him. And that choice, in a galaxy full of danger, it was a gift he couldn't ignore. As the lights dimmed in the ward and the hum of machinery filled the quiet space, Ethan settled back into his bed. Keeping a careful eye on Leora, she had returned to her station, standing silently, watching. But now there was something different in her gaze, a flicker of trust, of patience, and maybe, just maybe, a hint that their story had only just begun, and Ethan realized. Surviving alien storms, crashes, and creatures was nothing compared to navigating the mysteries of an alien nurse in mating season. The next morning, Ethan woke to the familiar hum of the medical ward, but something in the air felt different. Leora was already at his side, sitting quietly on a chair that had been adjusted to her height. Her amber eyes followed his every movement, intense and unwavering. Ethan stretched, careful not to aggravate his shoulder. "Morning, Leora," he said cautiously. How are you today?" Her head tilted slightly as if studying his words. "I am vigilant. I slept little." "You must not be harmed again." Ethan took a deep breath. He had faced life-threatening situations before, storming alien battlefields, surviving shipwrecks, and escaping wild creatures, but never had he felt such a strange combination of fear and curiosity. A nurse whose instincts had chosen him as her bond focus. It was beyond anything he could have imagined. He decided that today he would try to establish some kind of boundaries. "Leora," he began slowly, "I appreciate everything you've done, but I need you to understand human space. I mean, personal space. I need to move without you following me everywhere." Leora's amber eyes narrowed slightly. She remained silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but firm. "You request boundaries? I must learn them, but my instincts are strong." "I will try," Ethan nodded, relieved. "That's all I ask." For a few hours, things seemed to settle. Leora followed him at a distance, her protective gaze still there but less overwhelming. Ethan did light exercises in the small rehabilitation room, carefully following the routines the doctors had provided. Leora hovered near the doorway, arms crossed, but did not intervene unless he stumbled or paused. Then the alarm sounded. This time, it was a more urgent warning. Security breach. Hostile creatures in the East Wing? Evacuate immediately. Ethan froze. "Not again," he muttered under his breath. Leora's tail coiled behind her, her body tensing as she moved into a defensive stance. "We must leave this room," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Follow me." They ran through the corridor, Ethan limping slightly, Leora keeping pace effortlessly. Along the way, he noticed the other patients panicking. Some tried to escape, others called for help. Leora stepped in front of anyone approaching Ethan, her presence a living barrier. "What do I do?" Ethan asked breathlessly. "Just stay behind me." "No," she replied sharply. "You help. We act together. I protect, you assist. Understand?" Ethan nodded. "Got it." They reached a junction where the creature's small, fast-moving, insect-like aliens were swarming the hallway. Leora's amber eyes glowed slightly, and she crouched, tail sweeping across the floor. Ethan grabbed a medical cart to block the first wave of attackers. Leora moved like a shadow, striking, dodging, and intercepting any creature that approached him. Every movement was precise, efficient, and deadly. Ethan realized he could barely keep up, but he followed her lead. Using the cart to shove the creatures back, the creatures scattered, but more were coming. Leora's instincts guided her, anticipating their movements with astonishing accuracy. She grabbed a metal pole from the corridor, swinging it with incredible strength to block the creature's attacks. Ethan, inspired by her bravery, began helping more confidently. After several tense minutes, the security team arrived, armed with containment beams. The creatures were subdued, and the ward's alarms silenced. Ethan leaned against a wall, panting, heart racing. He glanced at Leora. She had a few scratches on her arms and shoulders, but she stood perfectly straight, watching him with intense focus. "You were amazing," Ethan said, his voice shaking. I don't know how you did that." Leora's lips pressed into a thin line. "I protect my bond focus." "You survived. That is enough." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. He had faced deadly situations before, but nothing like this. The idea of an alien nurse, driven by instinct, risking herself for him. It was almost unreal. After the chaos settled, the head medic called him aside. "Ethan, you need to understand something about her species. Leora's mating season instincts are not just emotional, they are chemical, biological. She feels compelled to protect and bond. This is her natural state. You cannot force her to stop, but you can guide her." "I understand. I think," Ethan muttered. "But what if she misunderstands me? What if she thinks I'm rejecting her?" The doctor gave a faint smile. "Then you must act with patience and clarity. She respects strength and reason. Teach her human ways slowly." "That is all," Ethan nodded. It was a lot to process. The nurse who had entered his life as a caretaker was now a creature of instinct and devotion. He was beginning to understand that his own safety and her emotional balance were deeply connected. Returning to his room, he found Leora already there, sitting beside the window. She did not speak immediately, only watching him approach. "I need to ask you something," Ethan said carefully.
"When you
"Follow me like that, when you protect me. What do you feel?" Leora's amber eyes met his. "I feel duty, desire, instinct, compulsion. I do not fully understand human emotion, but my body reacts. My mind waits for your guidance." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The words were strange, almost alien, yet he could sense the truth behind them. She was not being aggressive or possessive in a harmful way. She simply needed him to guide her, to show her what was acceptable and what was not. "I see," he said slowly. "So, I need to teach you boundaries step by step." Her head tilted. "Yes, step by step. You decide. I obey." It was a strange arrangement, but Ethan realized it was the only way forward. They spent the rest of the day establishing basic rules. She would not follow him into the bathroom. She would not hover excessively during his meals, and she would wait at a respectful distance when he moved about the room. In return, he allowed her to stay near when danger was present, acknowledging her protective instincts. By evening, Ethan felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief. He had survived another crisis, and somehow he and Leora had created a fragile understanding. It was not friendship yet, not even trust fully, but it was a beginning. Then, a new problem appeared. Leora's mating season intensified, and the chemical signals she emitted began affecting other creatures in the ward. Small, harmless alien animals in the observation rooms reacted to her presence. They became agitated, almost drawn to her, moving in erratic patterns. Ethan watched, alarmed. "Leora, I think your signals are affecting them. We need to contain this." Leora nodded, understanding immediately. "I cannot stop it, but I will adjust proximity. We will manage." They spent hours reorganizing the ward, isolating the creatures safely and preventing interference. Ethan was amazed at her ability to adapt, even under the strong influence of instinct. She could still think, still reason, despite the overwhelming drive of her mating season. As night fell, the ward grew quiet. Ethan sat in his bed, reflecting on the day's events. He had survived storms, crashes, and creatures before. But today he had learned something new. Survival was not only about physical strength. It was also about patience, understanding, and the courage to face situations completely alien to his experience. Leora returned to her chair beside the bed. She no longer hovered or glared intensely. Instead, she sat with careful posture, watching him calmly. "I will wait," she said softly. "You guide. I obey. I protect." Ethan smiled faintly. "I will do my best. That's all I can promise." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, Leora's tail brushed lightly against the floor, a subtle sign of trust. Ethan realized that small gestures like this were their way of communicating, slowly building mutual understanding that night. Ethan slept with one eye half open, aware of Leora's presence, but no longer feeling trapped or overwhelmed. He knew that navigating the challenges ahead would require patience, careful guidance, and courage. And he also knew that Leora's devotion was genuine, an instinctual force that, if respected, could form a bond stronger than any human had experienced before. Outside the ward, the alien world of Valak Prime continued its quiet hum. Oblivious to the struggles of a human and his extraordinary nurse, but for Ethan the future had changed forever. He was no longer just a patient, he was someone who had been chosen, tested, and protected in ways he could never have imagined. And deep inside he wondered, could this strange connection, forged in chaos and instinct, become something more? Could he guide Leora through her instincts while finding a path toward trust, understanding, and perhaps even friendship? Tomorrow, he would find out. The next morning, the ward was unusually quiet. Ethan woke with a sense of unease. Even though Leora had calmed her behavior after his guidance, he knew her instincts were still strong. Her amber eyes followed him as he stretched and got out of bed. "Good morning, Leora," Ethan said softly. "How did you sleep?" "I slept." Lightly, she replied, her tail coiled neatly around her chair. "I remained alert. You are unharmed. That matters." Ethan smiled faintly. "I appreciate that. But today, let's try something different. I want to do some exercises outside the ward. I need your help, but not too close." "Agreed?" Leora studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Agreed." I remained near, but not overbearing. It was progress. Ethan felt a small surge of hope. For the first time, he sensed that their strange arrangement could actually work. They moved carefully down the corridor, Ethan limping slightly but steadily. Leora followed at a respectful distance, her movements quiet and controlled. Other staff and patients noticed her restraint and gave them space, clearly aware of her current state, but peace was short-lived. The ward's sensors began beeping urgently, signaling a massive breach in the compound's perimeter. Ethan froze. Not again. What now? Leora crouched, tail flicking, and her amber eyes narrowed. Hostiles. Many. We must act. Ethan felt a mix of fear and determination. He had survived disasters before, but this situation tested more than his body, tested his ability to work with Leora, to trust her instincts while asserting his own decisions. They reached a junction where the hostile creatures were swarming a larger, some more organized group than before. Leora moved immediately, placing herself in front of Ethan. "Stay behind me." "Follow my lead," she commanded. Ethan grabbed a medical trolley for defense. The creatures lunged, but Leora's reflexes were faster than he could follow. She struck with precision, using her tail and limbs to fend them off. Ethan dodged and pushed, trying to help as best as he could, even as the creatures swarmed closer. Ethan noticed something remarkable. Leora's instincts were still driven by her mating season, but her mind was calculating, assessing threats, and protecting him efficiently. She had learned from him as much as he had learned from her. After an intense battle, the security team arrived. The creatures were contained, and the ward fell silent once more. Ethan and Leora were both breathing heavily. She had protected him perfectly. Ethan glanced at her, admiration and gratitude welling up. "You saved me again." "You didn't hesitate." Leora lowered her head slightly. "I did what instinct demanded, but I also learned. You taught me boundaries. You guided me." "Oh!" Ethan smiled, exhausted but proud. "We make a good team, I guess." She lifted her head, amber eyes meeting his. "Yes, team, you protect, I protect. We survive together. That is bonding." "You feel it?" Ethan paused. For the first time, he realized that their connection was no longer just instinct versus reason. It was mutual understanding, a combination of alien biology and human trust. "I think I do," he said slowly. "I think I understand you now. And I trust you, Leora. That's important, right?" Her lips curved faintly, a subtle smile that conveyed relief. "Yes, important. I trust you too. Even when instinct drives me. I will try." The head medic approached them quietly, watching the exchange. "Ethan, Leora has learned a great deal from you. She still has instincts, but she now understands human reasoning. You've achieved something few could manage. Ethan felt a sense of pride, but it was tempered with responsibility. It wasn't easy, and I still don't fully understand her species, but we're making progress. As the day passed, Ethan and Leora continued exercises outside the ward. He guided her gently, showing her when to step back, how to respect human personal space, and how to remain calm despite her instincts. Leora listened intently, her movements careful, her tail flicking lightly with concentration. Later, during a quiet moment, Leora approached him. She knelt in her species' gesture of respect and said softly, "Ethan, you have taught me patience. You have guided me. I am grateful. More than instinct allows me to speak." Ethan knelt to meet her gaze. "Leora, you don't have to say anything fancy. Just knowing you listen, that you care. That's enough." For the first time, they shared a moment of calm connection. It wasn't about instinct or mating season. It was about trust, understanding, and respect. But the day was not yet over. A new emergency alert came through. A containment breach in the lower levels of the facility had released a different type of creature larger, stronger and more unpredictable. Ethan and Leora ran toward the lower levels. Joined by security personnel, the creatures moved with surprising coordination. It became clear that the situation was far more dangerous than anything before. "Ethan, stay close," Leora commanded. Her body tensed, her amber eyes glowing slightly as her instincts heightened. They reached the containment zone just as one of the creatures lunged at Ethan without hesitation. Leora stepped in front of him, taking the hit on her shoulder. She roared softly, a sound both fierce and protective struck the creature with immense force, sending it crashing into a wall. Ethan grabbed a control panel and activated the containment field, trapping the remaining creatures. When the chaos finally ended, he turned to Leora. She was breathing heavily, few scratches visible on her scales, but she remained standing, her body still poised in protective readiness. "Didn't even hesitate," Ethan said, voice filled with awe. You saved me again." Leora lowered her head, looking both exhausted and vulnerable. "I could not fail. You are my bond focus. You survive. I survive. That is instinct. That is care." Ethan reached out and gently placed a hand on her arm. "I know, Leora, and I trust you, always. Even if I don't fully understand you yet, I know you mean to protect me. That matters more than anything." Her amber eyes softened. She lifted her head, meeting his gaze directly. "Ethan, may I remain close? Not by instinct, but by choice." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. This was the first time she had asked, not by instinct, not by mating season, but by choice. He nodded slowly. "Yes, Leora, by choice." A subtle smile crossed her face. It was warm, real, and completely unguarded. For the first time, Ethan felt a sense of calm he had never experienced before. It was not about danger or survival, it was about connection, mutual respect, and trust. The following days were a balance of training, recovery, and quiet understanding. Leora continued to care for Ethan, but with restraint. She had learned to separate her instincts from her actions, and he had learned to respect and guide her. Together, they formed an unspoken bond of partnership built on protection, patience, and understanding. One evening, as the sun of Valak Prime set, painting the ward in shades of green and gold, Ethan sat beside the window. Leora stood quietly nearby, watching him. "You know," Ethan said softly, "I never imagined that a nurse could change my life this much." Leora tilted her head, amber eyes gleaming in the fading light. "And I never imagined that a human could teach me so much. About choice, patience, and respect." Ethan smiled faintly. "We've both learned a lot. Maybe this is the start of something good. Something neither of us expected." Leora's tail brushed lightly against the floor, a subtle sign of contentment. She stepped closer, her eyes softening. "Yes, a beginning. I follow, not by instinct, but by choice." For Ethan, that moment was more important than any battle, any survival scenario, or any alien danger he had faced. It was proof that even across species, across instincts and worlds, understanding and trust could form a bond stronger than fear, stronger than danger. He reached out and gently held her hand, not as a patient and a nurse, not as instinct and prey, but as two beings who had found a fragile, powerful connection in the midst of chaos outside. The night of Velic Prime settled in, quiet and serene. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt true calm. He had survived alien storms, attacks, and dangers, but the greatest lesson was yet simple. Trust, respect, and patience could survive anything, even the overwhelming instincts of a devoted alien nurse. And as he looked at Leora, amber eyes glowing softly in the dim light, he knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, partners, protectors, and perhaps something more. Ethan smiled. Life on Velic Prime was unpredictable, strange, and often dangerous. But for the first time, he welcomed the uncertainty. He had an ally he could trust, a bond he could count on, and a future that promised challenges and discoveries beyond imagination. And somewhere deep inside he realized he was ready for anything, as long as they faced it together.